After I bought my dream house, Dad declared, "You'll let your sister's family move in. You've got space, don't be selfish." I stood up and said, "You're right. I do have space. And I also have cameras." Then I played footage of my sister in my house last month. She took things from my drawer, namely, I worked weekends for 10 years straight. Missed birthdays, holidays, even my own engagement that never made it to a wedding because, truthfully, I chose the grind. I knew what I wanted. A place that was mine. Not rented, not temporary, not shared. So when I finally signed the papers on a sunlit, slightly crooked Victorian in upstate New York, I didn't cry. I laughed. And maybe I danced a little in the empty living room. It was old, but it had charm, and for once I didn't need anyone's permission to paint the walls black if I wanted to. Naturally, I invited the whole family for a housewarming. It felt right. New start. Fresh chapter. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud of me. They weren't. Started out okay. Wine was poured, people took pictures in front of the fireplace. My cousin said the kitchen was giving Ina Garten, which made me grin. But as soon as everyone was seated in the living room with little paper plates of Costco cheesecake, my father clinked his glass. I swear something about that sound gave me a chill. He stood up like he was giving a toast at a wedding, cleared his throat and said it plainly. Said since I had so much space, 5 bedrooms more than one person needs, it would be selfish not to let my sister and her kids move in. They'd only take 2 rooms and it was just until she got back on her feet. It was the least I could do, he said, after all the family had done for me. I didn't say anything for a second. I just walked to the entertainment console, picked up the remote and turned on the big screen. See, I didn't install security cameras because I was paranoid. I did it because I work in digital security and trust no one, not even Amazon drivers. One of those cameras is pointed right at my bedroom hallway. What I played was grainy but clear enough. My sister, Lisa, walking through the hallway last month when she thought I wasn't home. She had a key. I'd given it to her in case of emergencies. I was on a work trip and she knew that. But instead of just checking on the place, she snooped. Opened drawers. Opened the closet safe I'd stupidly left ajar. She found the emergency cash stash. 2020s. Took it all. As the footage rolled, the room went completely silent. Lisa looked like someone had smacked her. Her oldest kid, Marcus, just stared at the floor like he wanted to disappear. The youngest, Abby, whispered something and tugged on Lisa's sleeve. Lisa didn't look at anyone. Didn't say anything. My dad started to speak but I cut him off. "You're right," I said. "I do have space. And I also have cameras." No one moved. My mother looked like she might pass out. Then just like clockwork the excuses started. "She's a single mom, Qley. You don't know how hard it is. She didn't take it, she needed it. She was going to tell you. She was going to pay it back. You don't need the money the way she does." And on and on. I said one thing. You could have asked. Lisa still hadn't spoken. Her kids were practically shrinking into themselves. And all I could feel was this rising sense of betrayal. Because they all thought it was okay. Because they expected me to just take it. I told them the party was over. That they needed to leave. All of them. Except my 2 cousins, Grace and Jordan. They didn't say a word during the fight, but they didn't leave either. When the rest of the family filed out awkwardly, whispering, shaking heads, my cousin stayed seated on the couch. Grace said quietly, "You were right to show it. You don't owe them anything." Jordan nodded. He looked furious. That night, I locked every door, changed the code on the garage and collected the spare keys I'd given out. But 2 days later the rail bomb dropped. And I hadn't seen anything yet. 2 days after the housewarming imploded, I was finally starting to breathe again. I'd been working remotely that morning, taking calls and sipping what was supposed to be hot coffee, when I heard tires crunch the gravel in my driveway. It wasn't Amazon. I hadn't ordered anything. And it wasn't Grace or Jordan. They would have texted. I looked through the curtain. It was my dad's SUV. Packed like a moving truck. Trash bags, suitcases, bins, even a laundry hamper balanced with a blanket falling out the side. My sister was in the front seat, arms crossed, face turned toward the window. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Marcus and Abby climbed out slowly, backpacks slung over their shoulders. Abby had her stuffed unicorn in one arm and her hoodie dragging behind her in the other. Then came the knock. Actually, it was more of a pounding. The kind you don't do unless you want someone to know you're mad. Or in control. I opened the door and he didn't wait for hello. He said Lisa and the kids were moving in. That he was tired. Tired of the late-night emergencies, the calls for help, the constant noise. Said he'd done his part. Now it was my turn. I had more rooms than people. I wasn't raising anyone. I didn't have a family. I had space. He said it like a weapon. I stood there in my doorway, still in my robe, watching him speak like this wasn't insanity. Like this wasn't a woman who'd just been caught stealing from me less than a week ago. Behind him, Lisa finally opened the car door and stepped out. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. She popped the trunk and started hauling bags up the porch one by one. Not a word. Not even a half smile. She looked like she didn't want to be here. But more than that, she looked like she didn't think she deserved to be. Her kids followed. Marcus kept his eyes low, avoiding mine. Abby clutched her unicorn and stood near the stairs. I was silent the entire time, watching my dad drop them off like he was unloading unwanted groceries. And when he turned to go, he clapped his hands together like a job well done. He actually said, "Now maybe I'll get some damn peace." Then he left. I stood there for a few more seconds before closing the door and turning to face my house, now filled with people who weren't invited. That night, Lisa didn't come down for dinner. She made a little plate for Abby and Marcus and stayed upstairs. The only sound I heard from her was the soft creak of the hallway floor when she moved to the bathroom. It was like she was trying to disappear inside my walls. The kids were quiet too. Marcus tried to make conversation, but I didn't give him much. Not because I hated them, but because I didn't know what to do with this version of my family. They weren't loud. They weren't dramatic. They were just here, existing. I stayed up late. I kept thinking about the footage, about that moment at the party, about how fast my parents had gone from defending Lisa to dumping her like trash on my lawn. Around midnight, I heard muffled crying through the vent that connected my bedroom to the guest hallway. It wasn't loud. It wasn't performative. It was someone who had finally broken past embarrassment and landed in pure exhaustion. The next morning, I woke up early trying to process everything before work started. When I came downstairs, Marcus was already in the kitchen making eggs. He looked surprised to see me. He didn't say much, just mumbled a soft thanks when I offered him toast. He looked tired, not in the dramatic teenager way, just tired of feeling unsure where he belonged. Later that afternoon, Lisa knocked on my office door. She didn't look me in the eyes. She sat down, took a breath, and said she needed to explain. And what she told me changed everything I thought I knew about our family. Lisa came into my office late in the afternoon holding a cup of tea like it was some kind of shield. She didn't ask to sit, just did. Same chair my clients usually take on Zoom calls when I work from home. Except she looked like she was reporting to court. She didn't say sorry right away. That would have been too easy. He started with a question. "Do you remember when Abby was in the hospital last April?" I nodded slowly. I remembered the group text. Something about a fever that wouldn't go down. She'd said it was fine, nothing serious. They were back home by the weekend. I sent a DoorDash gift card and got a heart emoji in return. Turns out it wasn't fine. Lisa told me Abby had been getting sick every couple of weeks for almost a year. Weird stuff. Rashes. Fevers. Stomach pain. Doctors kept brushing it off until one finally ran the right blood work. Some rare autoimmune condition that I couldn't even pronounce. Not deadly but chronic. Painful. And it came with expensive treatment. Then she got quiet. She told me about the medication. How it cost over $800 a month. How insurance wouldn't kick in until they hit a deductible she couldn't afford. How the pharmacy wanted the full amount up front for the next refill. And how she had $41 in her checking account the day she came to my house. It wasn't an emergency, she said. It was a crisis that had been happening in slow motion. I asked her why she didn't just tell me. Why she didn't call. She gave me a look like I'd missed the point entirely. "Because you're the golden child, Qley. You're the one who got out. You don't understand what it's like to need something and feel like an inconvenience just for asking." She said living with Dad was like owing rent in emotional currency. Every meal came with guilt. Every favor was recorded in some invisible debt ledger. And when she asked for help too many times, the interest got too high. He started asking when she was leaving. Or if Abby's little illness was just anxiety. That was the word that set me off. He called it anxiety. She nodded. He told the neighbors that Abby was sensitive, and Lisa was just being dramatic. So she came to my house while I was out of town. Used the key I gave her in good faith. Thought I wouldn't notice $2,000 missing. She said she regretted it the moment she walked out the door. Even thought about coming clean. But then the housewarming happened. And the footage. And all she could do was stand there and pretend like she wasn't the villain everyone suddenly saw her as. There was a long pause. Then she finally said it. "I'm sorry, Qley. Not just for taking it. For lying. For letting you think I didn't respect you. You worked your ass off for this life and I acted like it didn't matter." It should have felt satisfying hearing her say all that. But it didn't. Because now I was thinking about our father. About how quickly he'd offloaded his own daughter and grandkids on me like he was returning something defective. Like Lisa and her kids weren't people. Just noise he wanted out of his life. And then she said something that changed everything. "He used your trust, you know." I blinked. "My what?" She hesitated. "That account Grandma set up. The one she said was only for you. Dad's been pulling money from it for years. Said it was for family emergencies. Mostly house repairs and some stuff for Mom. But I saw a few charges for his boat. And a casino in Jersey." I stared at her. I hadn't looked at that account in a long time. It was one of those legacy accounts my grandmother set up when I was still in high school. Meant for college, then property. It was how I paid part of my house down. But I'd always thought it was untouched beyond that. I told Lisa to watch the kids. Then I opened my laptop, logged in, and there was withdrawals that made no sense. Charges from months where I'd been working 70-hour weeks with no time to spend money. Thousands gone. Quietly. Strategically. Over time. Just enough to keep me from noticing, but enough to add up to betrayal. I locked the account. Froze every access point. Sent an email to the family trust lawyer with one sentence. Effective immediately, revoke all secondary access holders. That night I didn't hear from my parents. But Grace texted me. Did you freeze the trust? Dad is freaking out. Mom's crying. He said you're cutting off the family. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't cutting off the family. Just the ones who treated me like a bank. The silence from my parents only lasted until noon. Then came the first wave, 6 missed calls from Mom in under 30 minutes, followed by texts stacked one after another like bricks trying to wall me in. You've really hurt your father. We've always supported you. This is a betrayal, Qley. And then the last one. Short. Chilling. You don't know what you've done. Actually, I did. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I'd done. I'd shut the door they never expected me to notice. Cut off the supply. Broken their unspoken rule that as long as they kept calling it family help, they could do whatever they wanted with my money. I didn't respond. That afternoon, I walked into the kitchen to find Lisa folding a basket of laundry that wasn't even hers. I'd meant to get to it, but work had been non-stop. She was just doing it. Like she belonged here. But not in a possessive way. More like someone grateful to have landed somewhere safe. She told me Abby had slept the full night for the first time in weeks. No fever. No stomach cramps. She said Marcus had asked if they could just stay here forever. Said she didn't have the heart to tell him she wasn't sure that was possible. Then she told me something that made me sit down. Dad had been trying to get her to sign over her tax return last spring. Told her he had a guy who could maximize it. When she hesitated, he told her flat out, sign it over or start paying rent and buying groceries for everyone. And, get this, he said if she wanted help with Abby's medicine again, she'd have to earn it. Earn it. Like he was doing her a favor keeping her and her sick kid alive. I asked why she didn't tell me then. She said she tried to once years ago, but Mom told her not to stir up drama between sisters. Said I didn't need more stress. That evening I got a text from Grace. You home? 10 minutes later she was on my porch with 2 coffees and a thick manila envelope. No smile. No small talk. Just handed it to me and said, you need to see this. Inside were account statements from my trust. Dated back almost 5 years. She said she found them in our parents' filing cabinet when she was helping Mom with taxes. Said something about them had always felt off, so she scanned copies just in case. I flipped through. On the 3rd page I saw it. A wire transfer labeled educational support, Lisa Morgan for $50,000. Dated right around the time Lisa had applied for a medical billing certification she never ended up taking. I looked at Lisa, who was reading over my shoulder. Her face didn't even flinch. She said she'd never seen that money. Never heard of it. She'd never even started the course. Dad had talked her out of it. Said it was a waste of time if you can't even keep a job. Grace leaned against the counter and said something I hadn't expected. He used my name too. Tried to open a credit card last year. Said it was a mistake when I caught it, but I don't think it was. We stood in the kitchen, the 3 of us, 2 daughters and 1 cousin, realizing our entire family narrative was made of quiet thefts and rewritten stories. That night I emailed a financial crimes attorney. Not just about the trust. About fraud. Then I went back downstairs. Lisa was already asleep on the couch with Abby tucked under her arm. Marcus was curled in the recliner with a book open on his chest. The TV was on mute. The house was quiet. So warm even. The next morning I woke up to the smell of cinnamon. Marcus had made pancakes from scratch. Vanilla. Nutmeg. No box mix. He said he found a recipe online. Said he liked cooking, always had, but Grandpa used to make fun of him for it. I told him he could cook here anytime. He smiled for the first time since they arrived. Abby came out wearing 2 mismatched socks on her hands, talking to them like puppets. Lisa looked at her and laughed, not the tired, polite kind but a real laugh. Like someone who hadn't heard joy in months. I sipped my coffee and looked around my kitchen. For the first time since buying this house, it didn't feel like a trophy. It felt like a home. And I was beginning to think, maybe I hadn't just saved my sister. Maybe I just saved myself too. Monday morning hit different. There was a moment before I opened my laptop where I sat at the dining table, coffee still steaming, and just stared at the wall for a full minute. I wasn't tired. I wasn't overwhelmed. I was calculating. I had emails from my attorney. She didn't waste time. She'd combed through the statements I'd forwarded, cross-referenced the account access history, and confirmed what I had feared and deep down already known. My parents had systematically drained tens of thousands from my trust over the past 4 years, and they'd done it under the radar. It wasn't just about stealing. It was fraud. Real, reportable criminal fraud. Some of the money was disguised as Lisa's tuition. Some as estate repairs. But one transaction really stood out. A $7,400 wire labeled business coaching program. I called the number linked to the transfer. It was a poker tournament. In Atlantic City. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there staring at the screen waiting for the part of me that wanted to excuse it to speak up. It didn't. Because that part of me had finally died. Around noon, Abby came running through the hallway in a princess dress, trailing glitter behind her like it was fairy dust. Lisa called out after her, laughing, and Marcus trailed behind, carrying a plate of sandwiches he made himself. I saw a family in motion. Not perfect but trying. I opened my laptop, clicked the encrypted folder my attorney had sent, and filled out the paperwork. Official complaint filed with the Trusts Board. Full request for revocation of my parents' access. Permanent. No appeal. I signed, scanned, and hit send. I didn't expect a reply that day, but I got one. The board had convened on an emergency basis. Apparently, I wasn't the first person to raise concerns about my parents. I just happened to be the first to come in with evidence. By 4 p.m. it was done. Access revoked. Funds locked. Investigation opened. No drama. No fireworks. Just a quiet end to an ugly secret. But the quiet didn't last. At 7:42 p.m. my father showed up on my porch. No warning. No text. Just appeared like a storm cloud in a button-down shirt. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I wasn't going to let that energy into my house. Not anymore. He didn't yell. That wasn't his style. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't mention Abby or Marcus or Lisa. He just said one thing. You have no idea what you've done. I said I knew exactly what I'd done. He said I'd humiliated the family. That I'd turned Lisa against him. That I'd ruined my mother's health with stress. Then he leaned in and said in that low voice he always used when he wanted to make something sound noble. We raised you. You owe us. And there was the truth he'd been dancing around my whole life. The invisible contract I never signed but somehow lived under. Where every success I achieved, every dollar I earned was still theirs. Because they'd changed diapers. Because they'd driven me to school. Because they didn't throw me out when I failed algebra in 10th grade. They thought raising me was an investment. They expected a return. I told him it didn't work like that. That love doesn't come with a ledger. He stared at me for a long time like he was looking for someone who used to be there. Then he said, "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I just opened the door, stepped inside, and closed it. Lisa was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner. Marcus was at the table doing homework, headphones in. Abby was under the table talking to her stuffed animals like they were planning an expedition to the backyard. Lisa looked up when she saw my face. I told her what he said. She didn't flinch. She just turned back to the cutting board and said, "He's been using that line on me since I was 19. Then she paused, looked back at me. "But here's the part he never understood, Kel. I don't regret anything. Not even showing up at your door." She told me something else that night. Something I wasn't ready for. She said Dad used to brag about me behind my back, at the country club to his friends, about how successful I was, how proud he was. But at home he always downplayed it. Called me lucky, or driven to a fault. Said I had no time for family, that I'd never be a mother, that I didn't understand sacrifice. He liked using me as a trophy when it suited him, and a cautionary tale when it didn't. She said the reason he dumped her and the kids on me wasn't just because he was tired. It was because he wanted us to fail together. That hit me hard, because it was probably true. But here's the part he didn't count on. We didn't fail. In fact, this house had started to feel more like home in the last 2 weeks than any place I'd ever lived. Lisa cleaned the kitchen without being asked. Marcus cooked. Abby had started putting on little shows in the living room every night before bed. There was music now. Laughter. Even stupid fights about laundry. It was a house again. A real one. And when I went to bed that night for the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep running through my to-do list. I slept. The following week passed like a slow exhale. There were no dramatic messages, no pop-up visits, no more door pounding. Just quiet. Like my parents had finally accepted that the control they'd clung to wasn't theirs anymore. Or maybe they were just regrouping. Either way, I didn't care. Lisa's things gradually found their way into the house. Not dumped or scattered, but integrated. Her favorite coffee mug sat beside mine. Marcus started leaving his notebooks on the kitchen table. Abby covered the fridge with her drawings, some of which were just glitter tornadoes, but she insisted they were family portraits. I never thought I'd enjoy the sound of kids in the morning. I used to treasure my silence, my routines. But now, when I heard the soft thud of little feet running to the bathroom, or Marcus's voice asking where the cinnamon was, it didn't feel like an invasion. It felt warm. One night after dinner we sat on the back porch. Just the adults. Lisa had made soup from scratch and we were drinking cheap wine from mismatched glasses. It should have felt like a scene from someone else's life. But it didn't. She said something then that stuck with me. You know, I was scared to come here. Not because I didn't think you'd help, because I thought you'd see right through me. See how much I hated asking. How ashamed I was. I told her I'd rather have a sister who asked than one who snuck into my house and hoped I wouldn't notice. She smirked, shook her head. I didn't even think about the cameras. That's how dumb it was. Or maybe that's how desperate I was. We sat for a while in silence. Then she said something I never thought she'd say. I'm glad it happened. All of it. Even the fallout. Because now Abby sleeps through the night. Marcus smiles again. I'm not walking on eggshells. I didn't realize how dark it was over there until I stepped into the light. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't temporary anymore. This wasn't charity or obligation or some weird family penance. This was a second chance for all of us. I'd always imagined my dream home as a quiet place. Minimalist. Clean. Controlled. No mess, no noise. Just me and my career and the safety of solitude. But this chaos, this laughter, these grocery lists on the fridge and glitter footprints in the hallway? This was better. 2 days later I got a call from the trust board. They were launching a formal audit of all accounts my parents had touched. The board chair said politely but firmly that I might be asked to testify. I told them I'd be ready. What surprised me wasn't that I felt anger. It was that I didn't feel afraid. That same day Marcus asked if he could turn the smallest guest room into a study space. He said he wanted to try applying for a summer program in coding. I helped him move the desk in that night. Lisa started working part-time at a local urgent care center the week after that. First paycheck she bought dinner. Real takeout, not drive-through. When the food arrived, Abby said, "Is this what families do?" Lisa looked at me across the table and smiled. Yeah. This is what they do. And just like that, the house I bought as a monument to my independence, the house I thought I'd defend with locked doors and security cameras, became something else entirely. A place to begin again. Not alone. But together. For the first time in my life I wasn't guarding what was mine. I was sharing it. And it never felt more like home.